Marcus has a mortgage payment of $1,991 a month. His neighbor, 2 doors down, pays $2,200 to rent the exact same floor plan. For 6 years, Marcus has called everyone at every cookout that he won this one. Cheaper payment, building equity, not throwing money away every month like the guy renting next door. Here's the number nobody ever put in front of him. His real true monthly cost of owning that house isn't $1,991. It's $3,057. He has been losing this math problem by over $800 a month for 6 years and calling it a win. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to run this number for your own life, and I promise you, the answer is not the one most people expect. Quick ask before we go further: if you've ever been told renting is throwing money away, or that buying a house is automatically the smartest financial decision you'll ever make, hit subscribe right now, because I'm about to show you why both of those statements are wrong and what the real math says instead. Okay, here's the framework dropped on you before any of the explanation. Forget everything you've heard about renting versus buying being a moral question, about responsibility, about adulthood, about quote-unquote building something. It's not a values question. It's a math question with exactly one dominant variable. How many years are you actually going to stay in the place? That's it. That's the whole framework. Every dollar figure, every argument either side has ever made collapses down to one number: your break-even horizon. The number of years you need to stay in a home before owning it becomes cheaper than renting the same thing, once you account for every real cost of ownership, not just the mortgage payment. For most buyers in most markets, that number lands somewhere between 4 and 8 years. Stay shorter than your break-even horizon and renting wins, full stop, no matter how good the mortgage rate looks. Stay longer and buying pulls ahead, sometimes by a lot. The rest of this video is just going to show you how that number actually gets calculated, and why almost nobody, including people who've owned a home for years like Marcus, has ever actually run it. Let's start with myth number 1. Renting is throwing money away. It's the most repeated piece of financial advice in America, and it survives because it feels true. You write a rent check every month, and at the end of the year, you have a stack of canceled payments. No house, no equity, nothing to show a bank. Compare that to Marcus. 6 years ago, he looked at exactly that logic and bought a 3-bedroom house for $350,000, put down $35,000, locked in a payment of $1,991 a month, and every month since, whenever his rent-paying neighbor complains about a rent hike, Marcus has felt like the smart one. Fixed payment, building equity, not throwing money away. And to be fair to Marcus, for 6 years his gut feeling wasn't even wrong on the surface. $1,991 is in fact less than $2,200. The problem is that comparison was never apples to apples. Here's what Marcus never calculated. A mortgage payment is not the cost of owning a home. It's one line item out of at least 5. Property tax, homeowner's insurance, private mortgage insurance because he put down less than 20%, and maintenance, the unglamorous 1.5% of home value every single year that doesn't show up on a statement until the water heater dies or the roof needs replacing. None of that builds equity. All of it is gone the moment it's spent, same as rent. There's a smaller myth tucked inside this one too: the mortgage interest tax deduction. People talk about it like it makes owning practically free. In Marcus's case, once you account for the standard deduction most filers already take, it shaves maybe a few $100s off his tax bill in a good year, nowhere close to closing the gap we're about to calculate. Now myth number 2, sitting on the other side of the same coin: buying a home always builds wealth. This one survives because it's true often enough to feel like a law. Home prices on average rise over time, but on average over time is doing a lot of quiet work in that sentence. It's hiding the years where prices go flat or fall, and it's hiding the opportunity cost of every dollar that went into a down payment instead somewhere else. Marcus put $45,500 into this house between his down payment and closing costs. That money didn't just sit in a house, it disappeared out of the market. Had that same $45,500 gone into an index fund instead, averaging a conservative 7% a year, it would be worth roughly $68,000 right now, completely separate from whether his actual house went up in value at all. And appreciation isn't guaranteed at the level of one specific house the way it is for an entire market index. Marcus's zip code could underperform the national average, sit flat for years, or even drop while the broader market keeps climbing somewhere else entirely. That opportunity cost is the first piece of the real math, the math nobody shows you.
Let's build Marcus's real numbers from scratch, the way a spreadsheet would, except out loud. Start with the number everyone fixates on, the 1991 mortgage payment, principal and interest only on a $315,000 loan at 6.5% over 30 years. Add property tax. In Marcus's county, that's about 1.1% of the home's value a year, $321 a month. Add homeowner's insurance, roughly $150 a month, and climbing every renewal in this market. Because Marcus put down less than 20%, the bank required private mortgage insurance, about $158 a month, gone the moment he crosses 20% equity, but very real until then. And then the line that gets skipped more than any other, maintenance. Not if something breaks, a budgeted 1.5% of home value every year, because over a 30-year window, something always breaks. That's $437 a month, whether it goes into a reserve fund or gets spent reactively when the HVAC dies in July. Add it all up, 1991 plus 321 plus 150 plus 158 plus 437, $3,057 a month. That's Marcus's real cost of ownership, not 1991. $1,066 more than the number he's been quietly proud of for 6 years. Compare that to his neighbor's rent, $2,200 a month. Suddenly, the math doesn't look like Marcus winning at all. He's paying $857 more a month than the supposedly money-wasting renter next door.
Quick gut check. Drop a comment below right now. Are you team rent or team buy before we go any further? Because I promise you, for some of you, this answer is about to change in the next 90 seconds. Here's why it changes. Marcus isn't getting nothing for that extra $857. Two things are happening underneath it. First, a slice of every mortgage payment pays down his loan balance. That's his money, not the bank's. Second, if the home appreciates at all, that gain belongs to him too. But here's the part that surprises almost everyone. In the early years of a 30-year mortgage, almost none of your payment is principal. In Marcus's very first month of that 1991 payment, $1,706 was interest. Only $285 touched his actual loan balance. 86% of his mortgage payment in year one was effectively rent paid to the bank instead of a landlord. That principal slice grows every year, but slowly. It takes a long time to catch up. By the end of year one, Marcus has built somewhere around $3,500 in actual equity from principal payments. If his home appreciated a modest 3% that year, add another $10,500 on paper. Combined, call it $14,000 in equity and paper gains. Now, weigh that against what it costs to get there. $857 extra a month versus renting times 12 months is $10,284 in extra cash out the door. Add the opportunity cost of that $45,500 down payment and closing costs, sitting in a house instead of the market, at 7%, that's another $3,185 he didn't earn that year. Total cost of owning year one, above and beyond renting, $13,469. Total benefit, roughly $14,000 in equity and appreciation. Year one is basically a coin flip, and that's assuming the appreciation actually shows up, which is never guaranteed at the level of one house in one zip code. So if year one is a coin flip, why does this math ever end up favoring buying? Because of the one detail renters don't get. Marcus's 1991 mortgage payment is frozen for 30 years. His neighbor's $2,200 rent is not. Historically, rent climbs around 3.5% a year. Run that forward, and by year 4, that rent has crept up to around $2,500 a month, much closer to Marcus's all-in number. By year 7, rent has pushed past $3,000, while Marcus's mortgage payment hasn't moved a single dollar, and his property tax and insurance have only crept up slightly by comparison. That crossover point, where rising rent catches and then passes the fixed, slow-growing cost of owning, while equity keeps compounding underneath the whole time, that's the break-even horizon. For Marcus's exact numbers in his exact market, it lands right around year 6 to year 7. Stay in a house fewer years than that, and renting was mathematically the better move, no matter how good it felt to stop paying a landlord. Stay longer, and buying decisively wins, often by tens of thousands of dollars by year 10 or 15, once equity and appreciation have had real time to compound past the slow early years where almost nothing else was happening. Two more details push that number in Marcus's favor the further out you look. Once his loan balance drops below 80% of the home's value, likely somewhere around year 9 at this pace, that $158 PMI payment disappears entirely, narrowing the monthly gap further without him doing anything. And the 3% appreciation rate used throughout this entire calculation is intentionally conservative. Long-run national averages tend to run closer to 4 or 5%. Plug in either of those instead, and Marcus's break-even horizon pulls forward by close to a year. Now, before anyone in the comments tells me I just told everyone to go buy a house, slow down. The break-even horizon is a framework, not a universal verdict, and there are real situations where this exact math doesn't even apply. Life stage matters. If your job, your relationship, or your family situation has any real chance of moving you in the next few years, the break-even horizon becomes almost irrelevant because you're very likely renting whether the math says to or not. Nobody should buy a house betting on a 5-year plan holding perfectly still. Job mobility matters too. Everything we just walked through assumes Marcus can simply wait out the early years. If a layoff, a relocation, or a career pivot forces a sale in year 2 or 3, he doesn't just lose his break-even horizon. He eats roughly 6% in realtor commissions and closing costs on the way out, on top of everything else. That risk never shows up in a monthly payment comparison, but it's real, and it's the fastest way to turn a buying wins long-term scenario into an outright loss. Market conditions shift the break-even horizon itself. Everything calculated for Marcus assumed a 6.5% mortgage rate and 3.5% annual rent growth. Drop the rate 2 points and his break-even horizon could shrink to 4 years. Move to a market where rent is climbing 6 or 7% a year because inventory is tight and renting starts looking worse faster. This number is never fixed. It has to be recalculated for your rate, your market, your home price. And then there's the piece that never shows up in a spreadsheet at all, the value of stability itself. Not being priced out by a landlord's renewal notice, painting a wall without asking permission, knowing your housing payment structurally cannot spike the way rent can. For some people, that peace of mind is worth paying a real financial premium for, even inside a break-even horizon that technically favors renting. That's not an irrational choice. It's a value that doesn't fit inside a mortgage calculator, and it's allowed to factor into the decision anyway. The math gives you the number. It was never going to give you the whole answer by itself. One last honest caveat, and it cuts against renting specifically. This entire framework assumes that if you rent instead of buy, you actually take the monthly difference and invest it, the way we did with Marcus's down payment. That's the whole reason renting can win on paper in the early years, not because rent itself builds anything, but because the leftover cash invested consistently does. If that difference just gets spent instead, the break-even horizon stops mattering because there's no invested side of the comparison left to compare against. The math only works if you actually run it and then actually follow it. So here's the solution again, fully earned this time instead of just dropped on you at the 2-minute mark. Renting versus buying isn't a question about responsibility or throwing money away or building wealth versus being stuck paying a landlord forever. It's a single calculation. How many years until the true all-in cost of owning, mortgage, tax, insurance, PMI, maintenance, and the opportunity cost of your down payment gets beaten by a renting cost that keeps climbing every single year once you factor in the equity and appreciation compounding underneath the home the whole time? If this number just changed how you think about your own lease or your own mortgage, that's exactly what this video is built to do. Hit that like button. It tells me to keep making videos that actually run the numbers instead of repeating advice nobody checks. Here's how to calculate your own version of Marcus's number in 4 steps. 1. Add up your true monthly cost of owning a comparable home in your market, not just the mortgage quote, the full line item list we just walked through. 2. Compare that to current rent for an equivalent place. 3. Project rent forward at your local rent growth rate and your true ownership cost forward at a much slower rate since most of it is fixed or slow moving. 4. Find the year those 2 lines cross. That's your personal break-even horizon. Whatever year that number comes out to, that's the real answer to whether you should rent or buy. Not a feeling, not a rule your parents repeated, a number specific to your own life that you can actually calculate. And it's worth rerunning every couple of years, not just once, because every input changes. Rates move, rents move, your own plans for how long you're staying somewhere move. The break-even horizon isn't a number you calculate once and frame on the wall. It's a number you check the way you check any other part of your financial plan.
Marcus, by the way, is in year 6, which means by his own break-even horizon, he's about 12 months away from the exact point where owning a home finally decisively beats whatever renting it instead would have cost him for as long as he stays after that. Not because owning a home is automatically smart, not because renting is throwing money away, because he happens to be about to cross his own number. If he sold next year instead, the honest math says his neighbor's $2,200 rent would have been the better financial decision the entire time. That's not a knock on Marcus, it's just what the spreadsheet says once you're willing to actually look at it. That's the whole point of this channel, not telling you what to feel good about, but showing you the number underneath the feeling so you're the one making the decision instead of a piece of advice your parents repeated to you secondhand. And if this is the kind of math you want more of, subscribe because we are nowhere near done taking apart the financial advice everyone just assumes is true.